Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, December 10th, 2025, getting into the double digits of December already. It feels like it. It's pretty cold. Temperature will then, I think, quickly bypass the double digits and go down to the singles, I guess, at some point. But what can I tell you? We move on. We progress. It is Wednesday. Wednesday, of course, is the day after Tuesday. Tuesday, usually the day after Monday, which is when Greg tells you that 2 days from now is going to be Wednesday, which is the day after yesterday, which means that there was elections and there are results. It's a long way around. But and I'm sure there's a shorter way of saying that. We'll have to work on that and talk with the editors. And, of course, no shortage of super dumb, stupefying news about Donald Trump and his entire administration. Last night, certainly plenty of fodder now. Last night he went and made a speech. He decided he was going to go to Pennsylvania to address affordability, which is, of course, well, what time is it? It's a Democrat hoax right now, but in 5 minutes it's going to be his agenda. He's the affordability president. And, yeah, so he went to, I don't know what the state, I guess the stated purpose of the speech was to go and address affordability, which, of course, means going to Pennsylvania because, in his mind, I guess, that's the closest place where there's really poor weirdo people from Appalachia. And I'll go there and I'll just address affordability with them because they're from the mountains. They're poor mountaineers, barely kept their family fed. But one day you'll be out shooting at some food and up from the ground will come bubbling crude. And then everything will be all right and we'll all be billionaires together and buy crypto. Yeah, I don't know what the purpose of the speech was supposed to be, but whatever it was, he went there to say, by the way, I also hate, in a very racist way, people from other countries, especially brown ones, which are terrible. Boy, do I hate that Ilhan Omar. She's so disgusting. I can't take it anymore. A couple minutes of that. And when it was on the subject of affordability, all I really gleaned from this was something about, in China, they have 30 pencils, but we're not going to have the pencils. We're going to have dolls, but not so many of them, which is affordability, everybody. I don't know what he thought this was going to be, but I guess it was also time for him to tell everybody how many cognitive tests he's been forced to take in front of rooms full of doctors, which is not ordinarily a good sign for how, mentally healthy you are. But of course, he takes it that way. I've had a record number. No president has had more mental cognitive tests and aced them. They say to me all the time, the doctors are always saying, sir, we've never seen anybody score like this on a test. And that's probably true. But I aced it. It would be very hard for other presidents to tell, for instance, what time is it on this clock, or is this an elephant? He's convinced of the difficulty of these tests. Continuing theme, apparently the MRIs are out there, and I guess we'll get to releasing them right after probably, I guess, the Epstein files, which, by the way, we're now, I guess, 9 days away. 9 days from, well, what's legally supposed to be the release, whatever that might mean, of the Epstein files, whatever that might mean. I have a feeling it will show that he has a record number of days of really good behavior around Jeffrey Epstein, who's very terrible, and we definitely hate. But isn't affordability great? He had so many pencils. I don't know how he's going to weave this together, but he thinks it's his specialty. Greg Dworkin is here, and it's an actual specialty for him, weaving together the news. And, it's time for me to quickly scramble and find something good and appropriate. Like maybe we'll do this one today because the button presented itself. And although it's a little elaborate, it's good and old-timey and makes you feel like you're going to the motion pictures. The talkies. Greg, I bet you called them the talkies because you're like 150, right?
Meow. Yeah.
All right. Good morning. How's it going?
Yeah, so it's Wednesday, so there must have been elections yesterday. We'll talk about
That's what
them.
they say.
Let me just give you a quick summary at the top for those
yes,
of you who
please.
didn't know what happened. Big
I
night
don't
for
know what
Democrats,
happened.
says Taniel, our friend. They flip Miami's mayorship. They
Woo!
flip a state house district in Georgia that had voted Trump by 13.
Woo!
The
Midnight train,
Miami
baby.
mayorship, I think, went Republican like by 67 points last time, something like that.
Well,
That particular area, the Miami area where the mayoral race was,
yes.
went for Harris by +1 over Trump in the 2024 election.
Aha! Well,
Okay.
that's
So
good.
naturally, Fox News says, well, this is a Harris district, but
okay.
what happened is it went +19 for the Democrat, which we knew was going to happen. We talked about that. They kept Albuquerque's mayorship, the Democrats did, while the liberal faction flips the city council, because Bolt's Magazine, where Taniel's the executive editor and or publisher or whatever it is, the big honcho, really does hyper-local work on elections, so he keeps track of that. And they get big overperformance in races they didn't win, just like in Tennessee. In Florida, 2 special elections, which were state level, +18 and +22 over performances by the Democrats. So overall, a really, really, really good night.
I understood.
And a bad night for Republicans. It'll make them sweat.
Well, that's good. I understood. Well, they're very sweaty people. I understood one of these Florida special elections, state legislature elections, was in the villages, or it included the villages.
Sumter County.
Yeah.
Where it's called what is it? A golf car? It's not a golf cart.
Yes. Right. They dropped the T. It's a very local dialect for them.
Yeah. In any case.
Yeah.
Why is all of this happening? Why is this happening? As Rachel Maddow might ask. Why is this happening? And the answer is the economy's stupid.
Oh.
Politico has this really important poll out today, which I think is absolutely vital to cover.
All
New
right.
poll paints a grim picture of a nation under financial strain. This explains the elections and pretty much everything. Rising costs are crushing Americans, and they're running out of room to adjust. Americans are struggling with affordability pressures that are squeezing everything from the everyday necessities to big-ticket expenses.
True.
Nearly half of Americans say they find groceries, utility bills, healthcare, housing, and transportation difficult to afford. Utility bills in Connecticut are just skyrocketing. According to the Politico poll conducted last month by Public First, the results paint a grim portrait of spending constraints. More than a quarter, 27%, say they've skipped a medical checkup because it costs. 23% say they've skipped a prescription dose for the same reason. Strain is also reshaping how Americans spend their free time. More than a third, 37%, say they can't afford to attend a professional sports event with their family or friends.
Wow.
And almost half say they can't pay for a vacation that involves air travel.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So no more of this go to Iceland and see what happens stuff, you know?
Right. Well, yeah, I don't know how the Iceland flight. I haven't even bothered to check because on a couple of domestic flights that I was thinking, well, it might be nice to. Oh, holy cow. No, $1,200 a seat. I can't do that. Wow.
Are destination weddings and bar mitzvahs still happening? Yes.
The destination is.
Because we have a bifurcated economy.
Oh.
We have a group of people, maybe 10% at the top, 20% that can afford to do what they used to do, just complain about it. And then we have certainly the lower half, the big chunk of people who live here who can't afford these things. The people who own news outlets are in the top group, the first group. And they don't report about it the way they did about Biden and the price of everything, which was like a daily coverage thing. You don't see that, even though the price of beef is off the ceiling. And a lot of this is directly due to Trump's policies, as opposed to in the Biden era when it was due to COVID.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I recall them reporting something about Biden being old as well, but they don't discuss that as much, except in this context of how well the other guy does on his cognitive tests.
Right. So more of a deep dive, and it'll explain some of the campaigning that Trump is starting to do around the country as if it's going to work. Tariffs. The big observation, Trump has struggled to persuade even parts of his base to accept the idea that tariffs will pay off over time. A minority, 36% of Trump voters, 36% of Trump voters said tariffs are hurting the economy.
Okay.
They may benefit the U.S. over time, but they're hurting now. Even fewer said the strategy is working. 22% of voters who cast their ballots for Trump said tariffs are helping.
All right.
Staunch supporters of the president were roughly twice as likely as other Republicans to believe tariffs are a net positive already, but large shares of both groups still said they view them as harmful. Even people who self-identify as MAGA Republicans were split on one of the favorite stools. And remember, that's a 2/3, 1/3 split in the Republican Party. 1/3 of MAGA Republicans, 2/3 are jerks. 27% of those MAGA voters said tariffs are boosting the economy both now and in the long term, while 21% of them said tariffs are damaging both the short and long term. Why jerks? Because they voted for this guy, even though they're not MAGA.
Yeah,
What now?
well,
Tariffs
fair.
represent more than an economic tool for the president, who argues levies have helped him negotiate peace and nudge corporations to bring investment to American shores. Those are both lies. And so, other things. College costs, tuition too damn high.
Yeah.
Half of people surveyed graduate from college support the idea that higher education is too expensive or not sufficiently useful. People who surveyed who graduated from college, more than half, say it's too expensive or not useful.
Well, they've
Food
had
prices.
an economics class.
Trump attributed his 2024 victory over Biden partly to his pledge to bring down the cost of everyday goods like eggs. Eggs were up because of bird flu, killing off the flocks. But a year later, Americans are more worried about being able to afford groceries than the rising cost of housing or health care, according to the Political poll.
Well, healthcare will join it in
Can't
2
get a hamburger.
weeks.
Half of those surveyed said they find it difficult to pay for food, and a majority, 55%, blame the Trump administration for the high prices, even as the White House emphasizes its focus on affordability and the economy ahead of the midterm.
Which is also a hoax or whatever.
As affordability increasingly becomes a political flashpoint, with Democrats eager to seize on GOP vulnerabilities, a meaningful share of Trump's own voters, 22%, blame the president.
Okay. I appreciate their consistency.
Right? Concerns
I
about
guess.
housing costs eclipse those for healthcare, utilities, commuting expenses, and childcare, but are just behind groceries. Healthcare costs. Nearly half of American adults find it difficult to afford healthcare. And as a matter of fact, right now, the Republicans are continuing to shoot themselves in the foot. Sort of funny.
That's going to be expensive.
The Republicans are attempting to come up with a plan in 2 weeks that they haven't been able to do in 15 years.
Well,
And
15
Eric
years
and
worth
Michael
of 2-week
Garcia
periods.
said, it may not be a popular opinion here, but in a weird way, he says, he's a reporter, it feels like the Democrats won the political argument on the government shutdown. Now Republicans are tripping over themselves to try and craft a health care bill. There's 5 different versions of it. The Mike Crapo version is probably the one that they may land on, but it doesn't necessarily have enough votes to pass. And the House doesn't know what they're doing. And when I say that, what I mean is that a health care idea came out of Rules Committee, but then they have to vote on the rule.
Yeah.
And this morning, the Republicans are saying, well, I'm not sure if this is going to pass this rule, but then we'll have to do it by suspension, which means a 2/3 vote, which means even less likely to pass. What I'm saying is they're all over the place on health care. And, my reaction, Eric Michael Garcia, I wrote him and said, that's not an unpopular opinion. These days it's becoming conventional wisdom that the Democrats won the political argument over the shutdown because, yes, we're talking about healthcare all the time. The unpopular thing to say is that Chuck Schumer might deserve some credit for that.
That will be unpopular. He'll be okay without getting the credit. I mean, I'm sure he'd rather have it, but that's the job.
Yep.
Okay, well,
so
that would be something.
That's the background for these elections, and I think it's important to really emphasize that. And of course, the gossip sheets, Politico, and I didn't check Axios, but Punchbowl, they mentioned that the Democrats did okay in the elections.
Okay,
they weren't all over it the way they were in Tennessee, probably because Tennessee was maybe more of a surprise. This one people saw coming.
I guess so.
Maybe.
I mean,
it's not a Republican talking point, and they have mostly Republican sources, so they're not really talking about it all that much. They're talking about other things.
Maybe they're just not saying anything.
So let's firstly, they're highlighting Political Playbook, for example, is highlighting their own Politico poll. I sort of understand that. And then they go on to say, after listing all the stuff we were talking about, It was against this backdrop that President Donald Trump kicked off his so-called affordability tour in Pennsylvania last night, jumpstarting what White House aides say will be a relentless campaign on the economy for the next 11 months. Trump, of course, has just rated the U.S. economy as A++++ in his big interview Monday with Playbook's Dasha Burns, telling Dasha not to be dramatic when she pointed out families are buying presents and juggling budgets. Doesn't sound like a man who believes there's a major problem. And the problem is he delivered some lines, but he also talked about garbage stuff. Trump revived his ill-advised line that it's fine if parents can't afford so many toys and pencils for the kids now. Prices are higher due to tariffs. You don't need $37 for your daughter, he said, right as people are buying presents for Christmas for their kids.
Everybody stop buying for Christmas. You heard the man.
More broadly, Trump made clear his lack of conviction in the whole premise, mocking the word affordability and admitting he was only on tour doing this because Susie Wiles told him to. Because he loves to tell his audience stuff like that. He reads like the stage directions.
Yeah. That's, what can I tell you?
He also read that his team has asked him not to discuss the border, so let's talk about the border, he said.
I really doubt they've asked him not to talk about the border.
And then did another one of these vitriolic attacks on America's Somalian community.
Holy cow,
describing their homeland as filthy, dirty, disgusting, and wondering why the U.S. couldn't just take migrants from Scandinavia instead.
Because they're not migrating, because they're having a good time.
Being criticized for this language today. Well, duh. When you're not popular, you can't get away with this stuff.
No. Yeah, well, good. I'm glad that this is getting headlines. It was disturbing as usual, but I found myself watching little clips of it on social media and thinking, well, I'm going to type it. You know what? It's not that it doesn't disturb me. It's that what am I doing? Shouting into the void about this. Everybody sees what's going on. There's plenty of shouting going on. Trump isn't here, but I mean, but it felt almost like, well, if I'm not shouting, then I'm normalizing it. Well, I don't know. I think I'm rationalizing it by saying I'm making space for other people to vent about it, I guess. But it is tiresome.
Politico then asked the question, how much does all of this matter? Potentially quite a lot.
Oh, okay.
In theory, this was the first day of a multi-leg tour running right through 2026 on affordability. If he doesn't hone his message, it's going to create a lot more ammunition for opponents. Whatever else he said during the interview, A++++ economy is what Democrats are running with. Abigail Spanberger, your governor-elect, said you can't solve problems if you won't admit they're there. Andy Bashir said if Donald Trump wants to say affordability is a hoax, if he wants to say the economy is perfect, I say he should go to every battleground state and say it.
I guess so. I don't know. Well, I wouldn't spend that much time repeating A+++++. First of all, it's annoying and hard to say.
So that's the background for these elections.
But also
then
people print it.
Politico starts covering the Miami election.
Very good.
As you probably saw, Democrats picked up several more eye-catching wins in state and city-level elections last night, including an unexpected ruby red state House seat in Georgia. We'll get to that. Every one of these has a backstory. Top of the list is Miami, which last night elected its first registered Democratic mayor, Eileen Higgins, in almost 3 decades. Politico's first playbook author, Kimberly Leonard, reports Higgins ran a campaign focused on how she would make city government work better and faster to help alleviate residents, wait for it, affordability issues.
What is she, Mamdani? Holy cow.
And she won on it. She coasted to victory.
Oh, well,
Democrats are quick to point out the unusual runoff is just the latest example of a set of wins that's seen across the country in this year's off-election cycle. And then they go on to say, it's worth noting the city has slightly more registered Democrats and Republicans going for Harris in 2024, unquote. Yes, by 1 point.
Yes. Okay, right.
So this was a 19-point shift. And by the way, there's some backstory that I thought was kind of interesting, so I'm going to throw that in there.
All right.
And this is a story from July 21, 2025, Washington Post. July 21, 2025, Miami postpones its 2025 elections.
Oh.
But a judge says you can't do that. It's illegal.
Oh. They didn't do that?
Why did the city do it? A circuit court judge ruled Monday that the controversial decision is unconstitutional and unlawful. Legal battle isn't over. Yeah, it is. They lost. Why did they do that? Supposedly, city council members in the Miami area are nonpartisan. So it's very difficult to find out what political party any given election is.
AI will
I
tell
will
you.
tell you that the incumbents all got thrown out.
Okay.
And this is probably why. Again, all
AI
politics
stands
is
for
local.
anti-incumbent. Yeah.
Yeah, the judge said you can't do that. Why would they do that? Because if you move the election from 2025 an off year to 2026 to coincide with a presidential election, you might increase turnout. Turnout's only like 25%.
I see.
But doing so allows the current term limited Republican mayor to stay in office yet another year.
Yeah. That's...
And the judge said, you can't do that without going to the voters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it stuck. And they won.
Oh.
And so now we had this election. And so a lot of people in Miami were really mad at the commissioners.
Well, good. Yeah, usually, I mean, the change itself makes a certain amount of sense. I don't know if I love it or not. I love off-year elections.
We'll put it up for discussion with the voters. Don't just do it and say it's done. Right. You don't have any say in it.
No, well, you can't do it that way, obviously. Or it used to be obvious. Now it takes a judge sitting you down and telling you this. But usually when they do something like this, they say, beginning with the next term.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, right. The next term will be 3 years or 5 years instead of 4.
That would let the Republican mayor stay on board.
Right. Well, they could have arranged for it, and they could have said, we'll do that next time, and I'm so fair, you should vote for me in this next upcoming election. But instead, they said, let's do the cheat one.
So here's the headline in the Miami Herald. Democrat Eileen Higgins wins Miami mayor's race, beats Trump's pick. Remember, Trump's pick was a Cuban-born Republican in a very heavily Latino district.
Yeah, even though he's also
Eileen Higgins
cutting
has
off
beaten a Cuban-born Republican before in various races.
Wow.
And gave herself the nickname La Gringa because of it.
She did it to herself.
But she puts together winning coalitions.
She does.
She's very good.
Well, congratulations, Professor Higgins.
Right? She got nearly 60% of the vote.
Yes.
And as Joe Biden might have said, it's a BFD.
Yeah. It's good news. I thought all the headlines that I saw about it were, it's been 30 years since there was a Democratic mayor of Miami. So it made it sound very exciting, even to non-political junkies. Yeah. The more exciting stuff is the granular stuff.
Became apparent. Members of the city's political establishment began pouring into the party. Well, that's what happens. That's why Mamdani's all of a sudden so popular with politicians, including Police Chief Manuel Morales, City Manager Art Noriega, City Commissioners Ralph Rosado, Miguel Angel Gabela, Christine King. How did Christine King get in this?
King.
And Damian Pardo. I just think it's a brand new day for the city of Miami, a needed new day in the city of Miami, and a lot of these commissioners are first-timers. I think 4 out of 5 are new. This is a story from the Miami Herald, which leads with Escalona wins Miami District 3 runoff. That's a council position, commissioner position, upending Carollo political dynasty, Joe Carollo and Frank Carollo. Political newcomer Rolando Escalona has defeated Frank Carollo in Miami's District 3, a stunning upset that deals another blow to the Carollo political dynasty following older brother Joe. 4th place finish in the mayoral race. Frank Carollo, the new guy, previously held the District 3 seat for 2 terms. He was running to succeed his brother. He lost. And so, where is he here?
I don't know. Where?
Commissioner Christine King.
Okay.
Who was reelected last month, the most tenured on the city commission with 4 full years. Everybody else is new. So what happened is they threw out a whole bunch of incumbents. That's really the point.
Okay. AI.
Yeah. So Florida also had those other 2 races, which our friend Taniel mentioned. Which were losses, like in the Villages, Sumter County, but nonetheless were pretty big Democratic overperformances. So that happened throughout Florida. And Florida is supposedly a lost state. Does this mean Florida's in play? No. But it's certainly the beginning of the end of a complete GOP dominance, because that's not really what's happening throughout the state. And as we talked about extensively on Monday, the Hispanic Latino communities there, who are all different, it's not a monoculture,
Right.
are getting very antsy about what's going on with Republican rule because why? The economy.
Stupid.
Oh yeah, ICE too. They're not real happy about that. Those are the two
I can
things.
imagine.
But we talked about that extensively on Monday, and it played into this race. If you're looking at just the mayoral race,
I'll do that.
and look at 10 precincts that are more than 95% Latino and more than 75% Cuban.
Wow. Also,
those 10 precincts in this race had a 15% shift to the Democrats. Wasn't enough to win.
Right. But a good shift. In years gone by, there would be a press release this morning from Bob Menendez claiming credit for that, but from prison,
this is a 3-to-1, Trump area in the Trump-Harris race.
All right.
And Harris's share was 27% in these 10 districts, and the winning mayor Higgins got 35% in these districts. Trump's share fell from 73 to 65. So overall, a big shift.
Yeah.
And, that's part and parcel of the bigger picture.
Okay.
So we'll do Georgia after the break, but there's something special about Georgia, too. Miami had his let's cancel the elections. No, let's not. Georgia had a dummy-mander.
Did they?
Yeah, they tried to make this district absolutely solidly Republican by splitting up the city of Athens, where the University of Georgia is, and folding it into a very, very red rural county.
Sparta County. Bad idea.
And it failed. No, Oconee.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, Athens and Sparta, they don't mix.
Yeah.
But as my guess, there's probably no Sparta County at all. And if there is, there's only 300 people in it.
But there's coffee counties,
Right, that's true. That's exciting. And all right, and breakfast
wasn't
foods
involved here.
Kinds,
that's a different part of the state. But they tried and failed.
Okay, I like the fail part.
Hi everybody, this is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show on the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
Oh, okay. Well, you can tell everybody, as we are. Hello, everybody. We're back.
Hi.
Did you want to save this for later?
My monitor died, and I had to get this new monitor, and all of a sudden it has a camera on it, because my old one didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I start these Zoom talks with David, it was just audio. But now, at least we have the capability of video, which is something we're resisting. But I must say, one of the things about watching myself on video is I get to see myself laugh at my own jokes, since nobody else does. So at least I have something.
Yes.
Did you have a good time on the show? Yeah.
I think I did. Look, there's video of me having a good time. I said some
very funny things, and I got a chance to see myself laugh at them.
That will be a new dimension for. I gotta get one of these new monitors. I guess the laptop has a camera, and I could turn that one on, but I don't have anything that comes on automatically. But yeah, it's probably time to add some video element. People, I don't know, I wouldn't say they've been clamoring for it, but I will say that people who have suggestions about how we could grow the show say, well, you don't have video, that's going to limit you. Although I have a feeling that our audience likes to turn on the audio in the background and walk away and listen that way, but I'm not sure. But Well, they're enjoying the show in their own
listen,
way.
it didn't hurt NPR. And
Right.
people say, well, yes, they do. Nobody listens to it.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Well, it didn't hurt the buggy whip guys.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not much. No more than the whips did, I guess. Anyway, yeah, so we'll consider that as a future possibility. But all right. Well, lots of options for that, and just know that we're considering these things.
Right. Not being a local, I don't know how to pronounce anybody's name.
Me neither. Where are we?
But this is from Decision
not
Desk
Hawaii,
headquarters. Eric Gissler, Democrat, has defeated Mac Dutch Guest, the fourth.
Right. Oh, the fourth. I hated all the other Dutch
Georgia
guests,
HD 121 special election.
Hmm.
Eric Gissler ran for the same seat in 2024, lost by 22 points. He wins it by a point. He won by 200 votes.
Like Kamala Harris.
This district was Trump plus 12 in 2024.
All right.
The Democrat who won lost his own race by 22, but it was a Trump plus 12 district. Mm-hmm. So that Trump plus 13 overperformance in Tennessee, 13 is the watchword.
I guess so.
You measure everything about that. Oh, that means if the Democrats routinely overperform by 13, any plus 12 or less district by Trump
is in danger.
Fall.
Yeah.
And,
doesn't always happen this way. But yeah, basically, if you have a district of less than plus 10, you must be thinking, I'm actually going to have to go home and campaign and tell people that affordability is real and I understand.
Yep.
How will I do that? Because I don't understand because I'm a millionaire.
Yep.
All right. Good luck, everybody, by which I mean bad luck. Right. Usually for performances, you say break a leg, ironically, instead of saying good luck. So, because good luck is a jinx. So, good luck to all of you. Twice, because you got two legs.
This is Bill Mitchell. Bill Mitchell was one of those super MAGA guys on Twitter.
He's a fourth too, isn't he? I think he is. I think he's a fourth as well, just like Dutch Guest. But
I don't know. Anyway. This one says Mitchell VII, so that would make him the seventh.
Oh, maybe it's his grandson. All right. Yeah.
I
knew there was some V's and some I's.
About this Georgia election, it was a freaking state house special election with 11,000 total votes versus a presidential election.
Listen, I just need to find 11,000 votes in Georgia. Does that bring back any memories for you, Bill Mitchell, VII?
Right. AJC Politics, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Georgia Democrats flip Republican state house seat in Athens area. The narrow win comes in a district that had been solidly GOP in 2024 and continues Democratic momentum ahead of the midterm elections. All true.
I'm going to look at some maps here. Athens.
Now, Democrats in November ousted 2 GOP incumbents for seats on the state's Public Service Commission. We wrote about that. We talked about that, which sets Georgia Power's electricity rates and were the first non-federal statewide wins for Democrats since 2006. And in the 180-member chamber, to hold a majority, you need 91 seats. Democrats have 80. Now they have 81. They haven't had a majority in 2 decades. But, seat by seat.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the way you have to fight it. And, so I like the dummymandered mention. You sliced things just a little too thin.
Yeah, you did.
Too cute
you
by half.
Up Athens and the University of Georgia and incorporated it into Republican counties deliberately to keep the Democrats from getting a majority. And guess what? In a wave, it doesn't work. Bye.
All right, cool. Bye. See you later. Have a good time. All right, that's good news. I'm just wondering. Georgia, Athens is what? It's east of Atlanta.
Yeah,
okay. I'm just sort of northeastern. Okay. I was just wondering, and I'm wondering where now. Marjorie Taylor Greene is northwestern district.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of curious about that.
District.
All right, yeah, just sort of wondering as as she's in her revolt against Donald Trump, but not like she's turning into a Democrat or anything like that. But
wait, you're saying Marjorie Taylor Greene is revolting?
Yes, absolutely, and I think everybody has always understood that to be the case. But All right. Well, something weird going on in Georgia, and it's working pretty good. Oh, by the way, what I did not know, this election was happening in Athens, but I guess her center for her home base inside of the 14th district is Rome, Georgia. So there's a little theme going on here. There's the breakfast county thing going on as a theme, and now we have a Rome and an Athens, and I don't know. So who knows what's next? Pompeii, I assume, is on the list somewhere. If you're representing Pompeii, Georgia, you've just been dummy-mandered.
Well, listen, if I'm not mistaken, your Commonwealth is named after the Virgin Queen.
Right. Yes. But that was several hundred years after.
People have funny names based on where they're from.
Oh, yeah.
And what they did.
Oh, absolutely.
And what they thought, and
I thought it was a fun theme. Athens and Rome, not like they were really mixed.
All I know is
it's like ancient
stuff,
is
absolutely
man.
The thing.
What is?
Coffee county.
Coffee. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's true. Every morning.
In the morning. I only like that county in the morning.
Yeah. Well, yeah. After like 4 p.m., that would be ridiculous. I'll be up all night. You want to talk about Coffee County results?
Right. After 4 p.m., it's Decaf County.
It's one of those sundown counties, eh? All right, I see.
Yeah, exactly right.
Georgia. All right.
So a funny thing happened.
Oh, good.
Zoran Mamdani ran for mayor in New York City.
Hilarious.
He won.
Right. With a funny name and everything.
And there were some people who endorsed him eventually after figuring out he was going to win because, you got to suck up to the mayor. And one of them was Kathy Hochul because Mamdani's more popular than she is.
Okay.
She's running for
Understandable.
New York governor, and she's going to want herself to be reelected. And one of the people that did not support Mamdani was Chuck Schumer. Never got around to it.
Busy.
And another guy that never got around to endorsing Mamdani was Representative Dan Goldman. You remember Dan Goldman from the impeachment hearings where he was a very good advocate, lawyer for the impeached Trump side.
Yes, though he lost.
He lost
on the
impeachment fight, but he ran for Congress and won that fight.
Right.
He's a moderate. He's got a Biden-esque view of Israel and foreign policy, critical of Netanyahu, wants a ceasefire in Gaza, feels like there isn't enough humanitarian support going through, but refusing to criticize arms sales and just didn't really want to strong-arm Israel in a big way, at least in the middle of what was essentially a war.
Yes.
And that's the moderate Biden-esque view. Now, when Mamdani ran for the nomination in the Democratic Party, there was ranked choice voting, and one of the people that finished under him was Brad Lander. They co-endorsed.
Sure, I remember him.
Brad Lander's a city comptroller, Jewish. Also, like Dan Goldman, has views on Israel and the Gaza conflict, which are relevant for New York City residents because there's a very large Jewish population there. And Brad Lander is announcing today that he's running in a primary against Dan Goldman.
Oh. All right. I mean, that should be friendly.
Lander was endorsed immediately by Mamdani.
Sure, I guess I could
which is
expect
a poke in the eye to Goldman. So you didn't endorse me? I'm endorsing the guy who's running against you, and that guy might win.
Yeah. It's the way those
Bernie
things
Sanders
go.
immediately endorsed Brad Lander.
Well, so what?
There's some other local names who people would know in New York endorse Brad Lander. We'll see what happens. Let the voters vote. I don't have a huge problem with Goldman myself, but the Mamdani coalition, the coalition that elected Mamdani, may well have a problem with Goldman. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. Well, Lander's a good choice to make that fight. I mean, he made a big hero of himself.
I'm perfectly happy if he wins and he beats Goldman. I'm happy if Goldman winds up winning. They're both okay.
Yeah.
They're both solid.
Okay. Well,
Let the voters vote.
You're not going to find me stopping them. They would kick my ass. I'm not going to be able to get in their way, I don't think.
Mr. Goldman narrowly won the seat, which covers the southern part of Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn. That's Mamdani's stronghold. In a crowded primary in 2022, he's drawn praise for sharply questioning Trump administration officials, but his more moderate positions on Israel and the war in Gaza have angered left-leaning constituents. Mr. Lander said in an interview that voters wanted an even stronger voice to oppose Trump to fight for immigrant rights and help Mamdani in Washington.
All right,
But
I
Mr.
guess.
Lander planned to release a
I don't
campaign
know.
video that cast him in a more gentle light, likening him to Fred Rogers. The
Really?
nearly 3-minute video makes use of animated birds flitting across the screen. That's what we should do with our videos.
Yeah, for sure, like Snow White.
Right? We should have animals like in Bambi, you know, like in the background just
Land
jumping
on us.
around. Deer and bunnies, you know.
Yeah, and eventually crowding us out of the scene entirely.
Exactly. And ends with Mr. Lander crooning, "Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
Did he?
Won't you be my neighbor?" He acknowledges in the video some of his messaging could be viewed as corny. He doesn't care.
Is he pro-trolley in the same way? Because that's a very important thing in mass transit.
Here's the important line in the entire story.
Trolleys
Mr.
will be
Goldman
free.
did not endorse Mr. Mamdani after he won the Democratic nomination.
Yeah.
And he took
Well-
issue with Mamdani's views of Israel. Mr.
Yes.
Lander, who, like Mr. Goldman, is Jewish, has been a vociferous critic of Israel's handling of the war. Many Democrats now share Mr. Lander's concerns, and a New York Times Siena poll showed that New Yorkers overall are more likely to sympathize with Palestinians than with Israel. Based on that, I'd say Goldman's got his hands full.
Yeah, I would say so. It's interesting that it's an interesting message to go from impeachment guy to winning a seat to being out again very quickly. You really need to be stridently anti-Trump, clearly, there. And Lander was a big hero, not only helping endorse and carry Mamdani over the top, but has been active at the ICE centers there and standing up for people directly against federal overreach in the immigration space.
Yeah. So all of that is quite interesting. And
Yeah.
again, it's politics that are local, but they sort of play out nationally in a big way. Lander says, "I'm running for Congress because the challenges," this is from a Bloomberg story, "I'm running for Congress because the challenges we face can't be solved with strongly worded letters or high-dollar fundraisers, and not by doing AIPAC's bidding," Lander said, referring to the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, the pro-Israel advocacy group. Again, you look at the political landscape, this is not unlike 30 years ago, where mostly Republicans, but some Democrats would try to get National Rifle Association backing.
Yeah.
They became a pariah group after all of the school shootings.
Yes.
And now no Democrat wants their backing. In fact, it's good for Democrats to run against them.
Yeah.
Hello,
Good to have an
AIPAC.
F rating. Yeah, I guess so. Well,
That's the future. It hasn't happened there yet. We're not that far along, but it's coming.
yeah. And
because
you might be
AIPAC
taking...
basically has taken Likud views. They view Israel as the 51st Republican state. The Ron Dermer, Netanyahu's most important advisor, is essentially a Republican from the United States who moved there to help advise things. And Netanyahu doesn't speak to Democrats. He doesn't deal with Democrats. Bipartisan support has just tanked under his, quote, leadership, end quote, over his decades of running Israel. And everything he does is to try to stay out of jail, very Trumpy. And AIPAC's associated with that. So for those that have other concerns and would like this not to be the focus, this is the focus. Sorry, that's how Democrats see it.
And they're
That's
taking
what polls
the
say.
Anti-Defamation League with them.
Yeah. So, there's a lot that's changing in this landscape, and this is absolutely positively a generational fight.
Yes. All right. Well, the last generation of Israeli politics has been poisoned. And
Right.
I guess we're going to have that problem later on in purging ourselves of Trumpism if we can do it.
Ben Max, who is a political analyst, says among the other things that happens, Mamdani's endorsement isn't just a black eye for Goldman or a poke in the eye to make him annoyed. He also clears the field for Lander because every other progressive or lefty challenger is going to not do it now.
Oh, yeah, they're not going to be able to get Mamdani's
Not after Mamdani
endorsement.
says Lander's my guy.
Yeah, that's true. It would be a much more, I guess, interesting fight. Sometimes you get these primary fights where it's a 3, 4, 5-way contest between all 5 of them endorsed Mamdani, and he has to decide which one of these guys he's going to pick. And then that's usually when they say, I'm not endorsing in the primary. I'll back whichever Democrat comes out. But, here it's easy, I guess. So good, he starts with an easy one because he's not even mayor yet.
Yep.
Don't give him problems. Anyway, Kathy Hoke will keep an eye on it, see what they're eating, and then go to those same carts.
Right.
It's good for you.
So that's the politics summary for today.
All right.
We got some other stuff to talk about, but that's the election stuff, which is on my radar. It doesn't mean that that's everything that's important. There's other important things happen, but I don't know about it, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Okay. Well, that's
just how
fair.
It works on this show.
Right. Okay. Well, there's plenty of other things going on as well. I have a Instapaper full of happenings. I want to see if I can find some news about this one. All I have is the very vociferous Tennessee Holler website. I
like that. I like that site.
Yeah, and they're.
But while you look it up, let me tell you something from TNR, the New Republic.
Okay. Not TNA, that's the other one.
TNR.
Okay.
Trump erupts in fury, says Greg Sargent, as GOPers humiliatingly defy his plot to rig 2026. As Republicans fear Trump's effort to rig the midterms is backfiring, Representative Jamie Raskin. Why backfiring? Look at Miami. Look at Georgia in particular. You can dummy-mander and wind up worse than where you thought you were going to be.
Yeah.
Representative Jamie Raskin talks on the pod about the need to counter GOP gerrymandering and about his new plan to reform the system with ranked choice voting.
Mm-hmm.
Which will go nowhere because incumbents don't like ranked choice voting.
They do not, typically.
However,
well, one incumbent will
what's
like it.
What's interesting about this is what's happening specifically in Indiana and Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is on your radar, but Missouri has petitions that were just put in. They needed 100,000 votes, and they got 300,000, basically to stop a Trump a gerrymander, a redistrict attempt, and we'll see how that goes in Missouri.
Yeah.
In Virginia, absolutely positively led by Louise Lucas, everybody wants to make the Appalachian Tail in Western Virginia red and every other district blue.
Yeah, I would like that.
What do you have, like 11 seats? They want to make it 10-1?
Okay.
They're going to do it.
They ought to. Indiana finally off the ball on that.
Well, Indiana, it's unclear what's happening in Indiana because the House folded.
Keeps changing.
On the basis of threats and intimidation.
That's a good basis.
And people have noted, if you're following right-wing accounts on Twitter, for example, instead of trying to persuade Senate Republicans, state Senate Republicans in Indiana, which is the key to getting this done or not done, they've stopped trying to persuade them and they're starting to threaten them. That suggests the votes really are not going their way.
Yeah, that seems like a good next step.
Yeah, well, that always works, right?
Yeah. And remember, do stop there. I mean, if you progress on to killing them, then they won't be there to vote your way. Yeah. So let's not have that happen. I was a little confused about Indiana.
Smaller, that's the way to win.
Yeah, right. Small tent. I read about that. It's a very popular approach. I was confused about Indiana because there was this moment where it broke through the news. Hey, the Indiana Republicans have decided not to do this. And then there was suddenly a headline, Indiana Republicans are doing this. But it was only the House of their state legislature. But they really went all the way. And they, too, have 10 seats, and they just redrew everything. I think 58% Republican by general election vote last time around. But they drew themselves a 10-0 map. All Republicans.
So Adam Wren wrote yesterday, fingertip feel of the redistricting battle in Indiana right now ahead of Thursday vote. That would be tomorrow's vote. All of the public body language from the pro-redistricting groups, Fair Maps Indiana, Turning Point, is moving into retributive, not persuasive positioning.
Okay.
Infer from that what you will.
Yeah, that they're going to lose and then threaten people as well.
Yeah, and of course, these are all out-of-state people with the loudest voices.
Okay.
So it's really kind of interesting. So that's part of the background for this whole discussion with Jamie Raskin about this. In today's episode, Greg Sargent writes, we talked to Representative Raskin about President Trump's corrupt scheme to gerrymander the 2026 midterms. And there are transcripts if you don't feel like listening. If you want to listen to us but not them, but you want to read about what happened, you can do it.
Yeah, if you can multitask
If
that
you
way.
want to listen to them, that's fine. There's no reason not to listen to their podcast.
No.
Just don't listen to them while I'm talking.
You're
okay?
right, because we don't want to talk over one another.
Well, why not? I do it all the time. I'm okay.
Well, listen to both podcasts
Are
at
you
once.
okay with
then.
that?
Maybe
You do it, you know.
we've trained people to do that. You can probably listen to
listening,
6,
folks.
7
That's
of them
cool.
at once.
Yeah.
All right. You can give it a try. All right. Well, yeah. So I understand Jamie Raskin also was pushing his own state legislature because they've been a little slow on the uptake. It's a Democrat-controlled state legislature, and they're like, well, I don't know, they're doing this as out of goody two-shoes stance, or I don't want to mess with my own district, or what, or I'm busy, or I'm lazy. But yeah, they're trying to stay out of the redistricting fight, and Raskin is reminding them, look, there's other states are doing crazy redistricting. You've got to, you don't have to go wild, but
we're
maximize.
talking Maryland. Raskin's from Maryland.
Right, I forgot to say that, but everybody knows that because I live in Virginia.
I forgot to say.
Yeah, thank you. Not everybody remembers which state he's from. He's from the neighboring state, and Raskin is a big name, and I think we've all heard.
And you're here to correct the things I remember to say.
Right. All of that was wrong. Right. So I had mentioned Tennessee. I just wanted to mention because this fits with the theme of Republicans are have a new approach to politics, which is threaten to kill everybody. And that's happening in Tennessee because it's Tennessee. But I missed the initial story, I guess, about this. But I guess Congressman Andy, I don't know if he says Ogles or Ogles or which is preferable for him or which is more descriptive. But Andy Ogles is apparently in trouble locally. Davidson County, Tennessee, judges now have written to the governor asking for heightened security following Andy Ogles' social media posts. Apparently, he has posted their pictures along with the caption, "We are at war." I'm not certain who that was supposed to go to and what they were supposed to take from it, but the judges, I think, read it correctly and said, "Yeah, this is a direct threat of physical violence against the sitting judges of Davidson County." And normally that goes poorly for your average federal elected official issuing death threats against judges. We'll see how it works in Tennessee. I'm just pointing that out, and I guess we'll follow that story. I'll read a little bit more about it, but it's a little weird.
Yeah.
To say the least.
So on this Greg Sargent piece, he says,
Yeah.
Trump's rage is growing as Indiana Republicans resist his pressure to gerrymander their state, and he exploded in a wild weekend rant, threatening primaries against Republicans who stupidly say no. Yet for now, state Senate Republicans appear dug in. Meanwhile, other Republicans are now arguing his overall gerrymandering scheme is backfiring. Why?
Yes.
Because Trump is hurting Republicans so badly that those whose seats are made somewhat less safe by redrawn maps might now be at risk.
Yes.
Raskin sees an opening. He's introducing a new bill that will require ranked choice voting in congressional races across the country, tells us about the proposal, discusses how Trump's gerrymandering chaos reveals ranked choice as a better alternative, and urges Democrats to fight GOP tactics with hardball, which is what they're not doing in Maryland right now, but he would like them to.
Okay.
So we'll see.
All right.
But I think Indiana's the one to keep an eye on, especially because the vote's tomorrow.
Yeah. I thought it was dead there. One house, one camera.
Well, same as Utah.
The bicameral.
It should be dead in Utah, but they keep trying to bring it back. I mean, the pressure from the White House
what does it really mean to be dead?
Is really up. And the reason for that is they know they're losing.
Yeah.
And it's elections like the Miami mayor that pushed them to do this.
Mm-hmm. And the smart people are backing off. Trump is like out there, like trading places. Go back in there, turn those machines back on, gerrymander again. It's difficult. Poor Republicans at the state level not sure how to deal with what if my Republican president, twice elected allegedly, Republican president, has no actual discernible political instinct whatsoever, and in fact is hugely damaging. Ordinarily you follow the lead because you don't get to be president being an idiot.
Well, yeah. You don't get to be rich being a jerk, right? A dummy.
Right. Well,
what about a crook? What
that
about
much I think we've learned.
In any case, this is a direct Raskin quote
fellow
about Maryland and Indiana.
Yes. Ah.
He said, we're a bit of a tangle in Maryland because the Senate President, Bill Ferguson, has said for various reasons he's opposed to redistricting to add one more seat. One of the reasons he invoked for it was that he had spoken to the Republican president of the Indiana Senate who said he's staying out of this, we're not doing it. Well, if he doesn't stay out, that's going to redouble everybody's determination to change Bill Ferguson's mind.
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing remotely ethical or moral about unilaterally disarming before authoritarians in a game that they've created. They want to essentially declare Congress Republican before a single vote is cast. That's his view. I think he's right in the sense that if Indiana buckles to the pressure, then I think the Democrats are going to have to buckle to the pressure too. The ones that don't want it, who don't see it as good.
You got to be prepared.
Too bad. Not now.
Yeah, I mean, look, you should at least tell them, look, if it worries you that much, you could consider language like that California initially considered, which was,
we'll only do it if you do it. And
yeah.
And I think that's right in the sense that if Indiana stays out of it, Maryland will probably stay out of it too.
That's, that seems plausible, and you could latch it to that if you want. I mean, I think ultimately California did the right thing in saying, you know what, we don't actually need the trigger anyway, which was smart. Also, remember, they were originally going to trigger it only if Texas did it, and then it looked for a minute like Texas might be blocked by the courts. And imagine if California had then said, all right, good, now we don't have to. And then, just kidding. The courts have changed their minds, or at least we got the Supreme Court to change their mind. And now we are going to do it. Oh, man, we should have done it. It ain't over till it's over. And you should always have this tool in your back pocket. It's ridiculous, as Raskin says, to unilaterally give it up. So don't. And he can talk to the state Senate folks in Virginia, who will tell them the smart thing to do is to prepare for this fight. And if you want to change your mind at the last second because you're sure of what your neighbors are doing, fine. But until you know for sure, be prepared. Be a scout. Can't go too wrong with that, right?
Right.
Okay.
Except I don't know what's happening with scouting these days, but that's another story.
My kids are out of it, but they had a good time, and everybody's allowed in, so that's fantastic. We like that. All right. Well, let's see. There are no more elections today, although there are some votes about elections coming up, and maybe we'll know more about them tomorrow, because that vote is today, right?
Right.
As you said. Okay. So that news might make it to us. It's Indiana. They might be slow with it, too.
Yep.
We'll check back in tomorrow. All right. Welcome back to the economy, stupid, everybody. Good morning. And time for our second hour here. I'll fill in the blanks a little bit on the Tennessee story by borrowing from the Nashville Banner. Is the Nashville Banner a good paper? I don't know. I'm not... I don't follow it. A couple of sources here. I've got WKRN News, WPLN News. PLN has the We're at War thing in the headline. Maybe I go with them. Nashville Banner. And anyway, I guess they should all be more or less covering things the same way. But I don't know. Nowadays, I'm a little hesitant about things that look like newspapers, but which I might not know anything about. And sometimes it's like this was just started yesterday and it's being run from Russia or something like that. So I'm not positive. Let me look that up. Nashville Banner. I mean, I guess I could always Wikipedia that thing and figure, is it a long-standing publication? Not really. Although it says here, the Wikipedia summary, the Nashville Banner is a non-profit, that sounds good usually, digital newspaper in Nashville, Tennessee, originated in its current form in 2024. So it's not of long standing, and that sometimes means, maybe weirdo Republicans with Russian ties are doing it. Normally, like the non-profit idea makes you think, oh, well, that's good. That's usually maybe a little more left-leaning. And it may just be, well, we can't make a profit with this thing because it's full of garbage, but we're going to waste our money on it anyway. So let me just see. Let me read on. The original Banner was published each Monday through Friday afternoon back when they printed it back in the 90s, I guess, was when they were doing this. But at one time carried as many as 5 editions. Holy cow. Anyway, the Banner was long a voice of conservative viewpoints, back in print days anyway, in contrast to its liberal morning counterpart, the Tennessean, which I do know. Although these views were greatly moderated in the paper's twilight years. That's nice. After ceasing print publication in 1988, the Banner was relaunched in 2024. As a non-profit digital-only news outlet funded by sponsorships and donations, its relaunch, the outlet has been significantly less conservative and is regarded as moderate. Okay. Just sort of wondering, these days you got to kind of be careful about what you're reading and where. I'll go to the one, WPLN News, and I don't know what their bent is, but with the "We're at War" in the headline. Oh, and it says that WPLN is Nashville's local news and NPR station. So that might be considered moderate as well. I don't know. NPR has its own problems. But because it has it in the headline, I'm going to stick with this one. We're at war. Nashville court increases security after U.S. Rep. Ogles' comments. Ogles is a difficult name to deal with out loud. Also because it ends with an S, and so anytime something is possessive for him, it makes it difficult to pronounce. So anyway, Mariana Bacalao is what I'm going to guess is the pronunciation of our author's last name. Nashville's courthouse is heightening security following comments made by U.S. Representative Andy Ogles, which the court said could incite violence. The Republican congressman from District 5 took to social media over the weekend to criticize Democratic judges, of course, for dismissing cases against a Nashville man accused of sexual assault. On his official congressional Facebook page, Ogles posted the photos and names of several Nashville judges. Several. I mean, how many people dismissed the case? I don't know. I guess there are several cases. Anyway, several Nashville judges with the message, as long as local liberals are running things in Middle Tennessee, and whose fault is that? We are at war. Oh dear. The Davidson County General Sessions Court said it will be increasing security around the building and called on Republican Governor, Bill Lee, to help ensure the court's safety. So we'll see what kind of person Bill Lee actually is in the next couple of days. And, once again, one of those elected Republicans who don't honor the results of elections when they lose. We're not at war because District 5 elected Andy Ogles, although I guess we are, now that I think about it. I'm not declaring the war. He is. But, apparently we're at war. I guess there's one fair interpretation of it. We're at war because he was elected, because he's using his platform that he was handed in the election to declare war. So I guess there's really no avoiding it. But yeah, if Democrats were to win elections for judicial seats in Middle Tennessee, that's grounds for war in Andy's view. Oh, Andy, please. Should have just stuck to playing with your cowboy toys. The Davidson County General Sessions Court said it will be increasing security around the building and called on the governor to help ensure the court's safety. We stand united, they say in their own letter, in condemning any language or actions that target judges or any elected officials with threats of violence as a means of expressing political disagreement, the judges said in a joint statement. In light of the numerous acts of political violence witnessed in recent years, and remember we were all boo-hooing just 10 seconds ago about Charlie Kirk, but if you're threatening Democrats, that's fun. In light of the numerous acts of political violence witnessed in recent years, the statement made by Mr. Ogles are unacceptable. And I guess I should not be leaving out of that the actual assassination of Democratic members of the state legislature in Minnesota. And family and dogs, for God's sake. In a letter to the governor, Court Administrator Kyle Sowell said, quote, we urge the state to take appropriate action to counter the dangerous and inflammatory rhetoric issued by Mr. Ogles. Tennessee must not become the site of the next preventable tragedy. Lee's office did not respond to a request for comment by publication time. So just keeping you up to date on the latest Republican members of Congress who are engaging in dangerous and inflammatory rhetoric. After, as I said, boo-hooing about poor Charlie Kirk and how everybody needed to be more civil to Republicans. Whereas returning the favor, go F yourself. Anyway, so some other things to catch up on, including, I'm scanning the headlines that I've put here in Instapaper and trying to decide which to go with next, and there's too many. We're just going to have to jump right in. Continuing a story we've been covering over the past few days, I want to add this from The Guardian, the European reaction and European perspective, Europeanist, we might even say. They're not the most European. They are just pan-Europeanists, unionists. They're in the EU responding to the national security strategy, which I really should be spending more time on this. I worked it in at the end of one of the more recent shows, might have been Monday, just pointing out that one of my favorite things to harp on, the 2016 recorded conversation between the then Republican House leadership members, including Paul Ryan, who's gone, Kevin McCarthy, who's gone, but a couple others who are still around, and that the conversation which became infamous for Kevin McCarthy blurting out that he thought Putin paid Trump was really a conversation about the, as Paul Ryan said, diabolical nature of Russian meddling in Western elections, and that the Prime Minister of Ukraine had come all the way there to warn them of what was happening, and that the United States was going to find itself targeted as well, but the entire West, not just Western Europe, but the West in general, including right there in Washington, D.C., would find itself targeted by Russian active measures and meddling in elections. And they agreed that they would keep it to themselves because it probably meant that Republicans were going to win, but they could probably handle it from here, right? I can stop drinking anytime I want to. I can stop Russian meddling and interference in my government anytime I want to. But I just found it interesting that in the conversation, Paul Ryan is convinced of America's ability to stand up to this and do the right thing, and says so. And Kathy McBean tells him right then and there to his face, no, well, we might be, but we're not trying, right? The part of the transcript that comes to mind for me is Paul Ryan saying it's maniacal. I think he said rather than diabolical. Maniacal, what the Russians are doing and their agenda of meddling in and manipulating Western elections and support, what did they say? Funding the populists, as they said there. That was the Ukrainian PM's way of putting it. They're funding our populists. They're funding our non-governmental organizations that are looking to usher in essentially fascist political viewpoints and mainstream them and award them the electoral prizes and the public platforms that come with it. But a maniacal plan, as Paul Ryan put it, and he bragged to his fellow Republicans. And guess who's the only one doing anything about it, standing up against it? We are. And Kathy McBean, and it is just what's her actual name? I've distorted it so many times. Kathy McMorris Rogers, who says, yeah, but we're not. She says it 3 times. We're just not actually doing anything about it. As a matter of fact, at that time, she didn't blurt it out, but I guess in combination between her and McCarthy, they basically say, not only are we not standing up to the Russians in this effort, we are knuckling under to the Russians in this effort. We are about to accept their help electing Donald Trump for the purposes of what eventually became our catchphrase on the show, political union with Russia to own the globalists. We basically would adopt the Russian internationalist platform here. And, well, it might have been a long time coming, but now we've launched a very Russian-tinged American national security strategy. Curiously pro-Russian and curiously anti-Western Europe, anti-European Union. And the Europeans have been seeing this coming for some time, but now they've been given essentially the unequivocal signal that you either have to just say, look, man, the Western alliance is over, or at least go around pretending that the trappings of the alliance are there because we can't move NATO assets out of our country and push American troops back home. It's unwise for us to do it. It's unwise for us to do it in terms of our relationship with the United States. They still want to have their bases here. They just don't want to cooperate with us in any way. So it's just not clear what the hell they should be doing with it. But in 2016, Republicans thought this was a maniacal thing to be doing. Then they decided very shortly thereafter, we'll take it for lower taxes. And now, almost 10 years, coming up, I guess, on 10 years later, not only is it no longer maniacal, it's the American foreign policy for some strange reason to not only be okay with Russian meddling in the West, but to join in that meddling and to make it American policy to help that meddling along. So that was the basis of the story we read the other day that, do I still have the headline? I may still have the piece unarchived, but what was it? The Politico magazine piece that was, there it is. Watch out, Europe. Trump is coming for your elections next. We didn't actually finish reading that, although we finished the most important, I thought, parts of that piece. But maybe we want to finish that bit up that we didn't touch on, although it was the last part wherein Pete Hegseth was yelling at them over defense issues, the section entitled Pathetic Freeloaders. And that's not actually, you might think that's a description of Pete Hegseth himself, but it is not. It's Pete Hegseth yelling at other people, European people, for being pathetic freeloaders. This part we did not add to the record last time. Maybe we'll do that and then head to the Guardian by way of response. But you'll recall that it was a discussion, an analysis of the language, the rhetoric of the United States national security strategy document that was released just recently. So on top of saying, boy, do we hate Western Europe, there's this part. Even before the strategy was published, Trump administration figures had already provided ample evidence of its disdain for Europe's political center ground. So far this year, Vice President J.D. Vance launched a broadside against Europe over free speech and democracy, i.e. we hate it, which is, not usually our position on this stuff. Elon Musk, who can barely be said to be an American official at all, Elon Musk intervened in the German election to back the far-right alternative for Germany, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth privately savaged, quote, pathetic Europeans for, quote, freeloading on security. He's just, one of the more strident big mouths that we've got. The difference this time is that Trump's national security strategy is official. It's not just three people rhetorically freelancing, right? It's an official document. It was one thing for them to think it and to say it to each other or in a speech in Munich, although really it's one thing for them to think it and say it to each other. It's another thing for them to come to Germany and say, you suck. But it's another thing still to have this be official policy. That part is true. That, according to one EU diplomat, granted anonymity so that his house wouldn't be firebombed. It's something else to put it into a policy document. What do you know? What is worse for leaders like Macron, Merz, and Starmer is that the Trumpian analysis that a critical mass of voters want their own European MAGA may ultimately be right, or it may just be a bunch of bot farms on social media saying that they're right, but okay. These leaders are all under immense pressure from the populist right in their own backyards. In Britain, Nigel Farage's Reform UK is on track to make major gains at next year's regional and local elections, potentially triggering a leadership challenge in the governing Labour Party that could force Starmer out. In Paris, Marine Le Pen's national rally tortures Macron's struggling administrators in parliament, while the Alternative for Germany breathes down Merz's neck in Berlin and pushes him to take ever harder positions on migration. The British Prime Minister disclosed in an interview with The Economist this week that he spoke to Merz and Macron at a recent private dinner in Berlin about the shared threat they all face from the right. We are facing the same challenges, or versions of the same challenges, and we do talk about it, Starmer said. They used to talk about it here in the United States and say it was a bad thing among Republicans, but then very shortly thereafter they decided to trade it in for a tax cut. Anyway, if America makes good on Trump's new strategy, and that is a big question mark, but if they do, private dinner party chats among friends may not be enough. Certainly true. And another reaction here, as I said, from The Guardian, European Council President warns U.S. not to interfere in Europe's affairs. New U.S. national security strategy codifies a seismic shift in transatlantic relations under Donald Trump, say experts. This, according to John Henley, writing as Europe correspondent for The Guardian. The president of the European Council of National Leaders, Antonio Costa, has warned Donald Trump's administration against interfering in Europe's affairs. As analysts said, the U.S. national security strategy represented a seismic shift in transatlantic relations. Released on Friday, the policy paper claims Europe faces, quote, civilizational erasure, although they changed the spelling of civilizational for British audiences, because of migration and a censorious EU, quote, undermining political liberty and sovereignty. Really? Confirming not just the Trump administration's hostility to Europe, but its ambition to weaken the bloc, it says the U.S. will, quote, cultivate resistance in the bloc to, quote, correct its current trajectory. Maniacal, Paul Ryan might have said at another time, only he won't say it now. Costa said the signal that Washington would back Europe's nationalist parties was unacceptable. Oh, I have sound effects for that somewhere. It's going to take me a while to bring them up. There we go.
Unacceptable!
Yes, unacceptable. Many of you will not recognize from, the Adventure Time cartoon. Well, anyway, a favorite of the kids back in the day. Anyway, it is unacceptable, and I have to agree. I should probably at this point, well, you know, I really think everybody should go back and read that transcript of that taped conversation in 2016, and I'm tempted to read it to you again, but I know I've made this point repeatedly to you, and by now you remember it. But it's just so amazing to repeat the lines of Republicans, what they were telling themselves in 2016, and then to think that they exited that meeting by saying, to hell with it, it can't happen here. That's all I'm saying. That's what's so ridiculous and so crazy about it. Okay, so Costa said the signal that Washington would back Europe's nationalist parties was, you heard it here, second. And speaking on Monday, he said there were longstanding differences with Trump on issues such as climate crisis, of course, but that the new strategy went, quote, beyond that. What we cannot accept is the threat to interfere in European politics, he said. And as a matter of fact, back in the day, American Republicans said, we can't accept. Now, I guess it would be longstanding Republican policy to say, well, we can't accept Russia meddling in European politics, but we can accept America meddling in European politics. That's our job, meddling in Europe and molding it to be like us. It's just the new difference is America is meddling in Europe to make it more like Russia, which seems like a weird thing to do. Anyway, Allies do not threaten to interfere in the domestic political choices of their allies, the former Portuguese prime minister said. That's who Antonio Costa is, I guess. And now working at the pan-European level, the European Council president. Allies do not threaten to interfere in the domestic political choices of their allies. The U.S. cannot replace Europe in what its vision is of free expression. Europe must be sovereign. And it's just so amazing to watch J.D. Vance, super genius, say, no, the way to true freedom and sovereignty is for you to surrender your freedom and sovereignty to the United States. And the United States will tell you how to be sovereign and free. And our idea of how to do that is, what is it again, Mr. Putin? Okay, thank you. I've just been handed our idea of how to make you sovereign and free. Stop doing what you want and do what we want. And what we want is what the Russians tell us to tell you we want. That does seem less than sovereign and free. The strategy document was welcomed at the weekend by the Kremlin, which said it, quote, corresponds in many ways to our vision, political union, while EU-US relations were strained further by a $120 million fine imposed by the EU on Elon Musk's social media platform X. How interesting is that? We haven't really discussed that at all. Musk said on Sunday the block should be, I don't want to pay the fine. So the block should be, quote, abolished and sovereignty returned to individual countries. Why? The individual countries have, in their sovereign determination, decided to unify. And so I don't like that. And so that's not very sovereign, I guess. The U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau said the, quote, unelected, undemocratic, and unrepresentative EU, they have elections, was undermining U.S. security. That seems like an extreme position to take for an ally. Analysts said the document codified a U.S. strategy first outlined by J.D. Vance in this year's Munich Security Conference in a speech that accused EU leaders of suppressing free speech, failing to halt illegal immigration, and running from voters' true beliefs. It's always Munich with these guys. It transposes that doctrine into an officially backed state line, said Nikolai von Ondarza, the head of European research at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. And that's one word, by the way. It really represents a fundamental shift in transatlantic relations. Von Ondarza, it's not that hard to say, it's just unusual, I haven't seen it before. Von Ondarza said that, in particular, open U.S. backing for regime change in Europe meant that it was, quote, really no longer possible for EU and national European leaders to deny that U.S. strategy towards its European allies has radically changed. That's true. It is the end of their ability to do that. Max Bergman, the director of the Europe-Russia-Eurasia program, and they spell program funny, at the Washington-based Center for Strategic and International Studies, and they decided to keep the word center spelled correctly for us. Thank you very much. It is, after all, our center. But Max Bergman says political meddling in Europe to back far-right nationalists, political union with Russia to own the globalists, political meddling in Europe to back far-right nationalists was now a core part of America's national strategy. I mean, to the extent we're going to follow that strategy. It is interesting to see it reduced to writing and made into an official policy document. But you should remember that this is the Trump administration here we're talking about, and the idea that they would say, let us publish a strategy and then execute it in an orderly and coherent fashion might be a bit of a stretch. On the other hand, it won't necessarily be Trump executing it. It will be other people. And they may be able to hold it together behind the scenes and actually execute this as a strategy while Trump tours the country saying, the official policy is play YMCA, and I'm going to make that weird jerky hand motion. That's official policy. So they might not need Trump to actually play in this. He can play in the sandbox, which is where they usually leave him. All right. So Bergman added, this isn't just a speech from a novice vice president weeks into a new term, although, we shouldn't devalue that in its importance. It is U.S. policy, and they will try to implement it. Moreover, he said, it could work. It's so crazy, it just might work. And it could, because if it is, after all, it's not, again, I wouldn't put it past the United States to be able to formulate a brand new policy and execute it just yet. But it is, in fact, a tried and true policy for Russia, so maybe there's something to it. So, yeah, I guess it's so crazy it just might work. In a fragmented political landscape, a 1 to 2% shift can change elections, although now there's a 13-point shift in the other direction. EU leaders will have to confront the fact that the Trump administration is coming for them politically, Bergman said. Do they just accept that Trump is funding their political downfall? Or does this begin to cause an incredible amount of friction? Well, I guess stick around, stay tuned, and we'll find out. There's a little bit more here. Can't fit it all in before the break, but we'll see what we can do. Mujtaba Rahman of the Eurasia Group Risk Consultancy agreed. The U.S. is now officially committed, alongside Moscow, to interfering in European election politics to promote nationalist and anti-EU parties of the far right, he said. Now, it was always the case that we were committed alongside Moscow and interfering, but from the opposite direction. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio, historically dedicated to interfering in European politics, as is, like I said, the U.S., that's not a new thing for us. What's new is that it is usually two countervailing forces, Moscow and Washington, both attempting to interfere in European politics and tip the balance toward their side. What has changed is the position of the United States to assist Russia now in tipping European politics toward Russia's side, which we view as being our side because we are, of course, in political union with Russia to own the globalists. Anyway, continuing on with the Europeanist view, as reflected in this Guardian piece, we were hearing from Mujtaba Rahman from, again, the Eurasia Group Risk Consultancy, who had pointed this out. And he continues on and saying, he said that if the document was U.S. policy, the first election Washington would try to influence would be Hungary's parliamentary ballot in April next year, in which the nationalist, Moscow-friendly incumbent Viktor Orban faces a stiff challenge. In other words, the people of Hungary may be saying, actually, we kind of hate this idiot and we want to get rid of him. And Trump will help Russia by interfering in that election and keeping Orban in power. Now, he, of course, he says nice things about me. That's the reason. I don't care that Russia likes him. Who cares about that? Although I like Russia, so that's nice. Another foreign name that I'm going to have to pronounce then with diacritical marks that I don't understand. Mina Aulander, I'm going to guess, is the Center for European Policy Analysis. It's one of those A's with a little circle over the top. And I think that's an owl, right? Mina Aulander. She, I don't know. What's Mina? What kind of name is Mina? I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't properly gender Nordic folks. But, they might not be into that anyway. Mina Aulander of the Center for European Policy Analysis. We would interpret that in English, Mina, as I guess, feminine identifying first name, but that's not always the case for, other languages. Sorry, Mina. Well, let's focus on what you're saying. The policy document was actually useful. It codifies in policy in black and white what has been evident all year long. Trump and his people are openly hostile to Europe. So it's good in the sense that at least now we know they acknowledge it. Europe's leaders cannot ignore or explain the fact away anymore, Aulander said. Any hope for things to go back to the old normal looks increasingly ludicrous. Europe needs to finally seize the initiative and stop wasting time trying to manage Trump. Okay, well, that seems like a very practical approach to things, and I can appreciate it. I'm going to use technology to quickly look this up. And Mina Aulander does look to be. I'm going to say we're all right in identifying her as a female and Finnish in origin. It looks like too. Is that right? Or at least she's doing work at the Finnish Institute of International something or other, or did at some point. Mina, not a first name I've run into a lot, but it struck me as likely Finnish. So anyway, continuing on, we're moving on to somebody else we have to try to pronounce. Natalie Tocci, the director of Italy's Istituto Affari Internazionali. How's that? How's that faux, practically Mario Italian for you? Well, Natalie, I guess, said the Europeans had lulled themselves into the belief that Trump was unpredictable and inconsistent, but ultimately manageable. This is reassuring, but wrong. I think that's probably quite true.
Wrong, sir.
Wrong, ma'am. I like to say this one. The Trump administration had, quote, a clear and consistent vision for Europe. Well, one that prioritizes U.S.-Russia ties. Okay. And seeks to divide and conquer the continent with much of the dirty work carried out by nationalist far-right European forces, she said. It sounds largely correct. Those forces, quote, share the nationalist and socially conservative views championed by MAGA and are also working to divide Europe and hollow out the European project, Tocci said, arguing that flattering Trump will not save the transatlantic relationship. It may forestall things temporarily. That's probably true. Some gold-plated trinkets that you give them or something like that might get you out of a jam that day, but it won't save the transatlantic relationship. There's too much of a real program driven by Russia behind it, I think, to undo it with just trinkets and flattery. Germany's spy chief, Sinan Selin, said on Monday he, quote, would not draw from such a strategy document the conclusion that we should break with America. And Jana Puglierin, the senior policy fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations, stressed that Trump remained erratic and the document may not ultimately amount to much. That's not easily discounted either. However, she said, the U.S. clearly wanted to redefine what Europe means to Europeans. The aim was to somehow establish that it is us who are the aberration, that we have somehow forgotten our true values and heritage, and that European greatness therefore needed to be restored with the help of, quote, patriotic parties, Puglierin said. And I don't know whether there's such a hard G in that. Would you guess at that? Maybe Puglierin? I don't know. Sorry, Europeans. It's not that I want you to disintegrate your union. I just don't know enough foreign languages. She said Europeans needed to see the relationship much more pragmatically, or pragmatically, if we don't want a hard G in that. Realize that endless flattery of Trump promising to spend 5% of GDP on defense or offering him breakfast with the king is just not going to cut it. All right, I think that's a fair assessment. Back to Von Ondarza, who said appeasement has not worked on trade. It hasn't worked on security, and it won't prevent the U.S. supporting Europe's far right. The bloc needs to articulate a strong strategy of its own. A summit later this month would be a decisive test of Europe's ability to say no to the U.S., he said, and I'll help you with that one. Oh, apparently not, because all the volume was turned down. No, I was gonna, and he is European. He's Greek. That's Costa from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. So what will you say? You will test Europe's ability to say no decisively. Okay, we're gonna do it all with sound effects this one. Okay, now diving back into Instapaper and shifting gears. There are many other things that I wanted to shift over to. Let's begin with this one because, as Greg said, the story for Pete Hegseth and our war crimes is not going away. I'm going to go back to Greg Sargent and the New Republic with this piece. Maybe while we're reading it, I'll remember exactly what it was that made me put it aside. It's, of course, a subject of interest. Trump accidentally sabotages the case for the boat bombings, I think, for bombings in new interview fiasco. And I think this might have been the interview that Greg mentioned with, we'll see if we can get around to it, but I don't remember the name of the interviewer. But, all interviews basically sabotage his case for something eventually. This time, the president's claims about the boat killings and his pardon of the Honduran ex-president, in a new Politico interview, it is the one that Greg was referring to, should finally convince Republicans that they and we must get to the bottom of it all. Well, it's another camel back-breaking straw. What do you know? Unfortunately, we're fresh out of camels, so we'll never be able to tell whether another camel's back will break or not. And it's just never really happening with Republicans. But okay, in case you needed further proof that President Trump's case for his boat bombings is a steaming pile of, it actually says, horse bleep, which we know what that means, but I prefer from the bleep, I like to go with the aruga horn, but how do you spell that? Of horse aruga? Anyway. In case you needed further proof that Trump's case for the boat bombings is a steaming pile of horse bleep, he just helpfully provided reams of additional evidence in a new interview with Politico. In so doing, Trump also handed Democrats a new weapon to hound Republicans mercilessly if they fail to exercise oversight over these ongoing crimes, oversight that must go all the way to the top. And I guess driving this story as well, if you're killing people on these boats because they're drug runners, how come you just pardoned the biggest drug runner of them all? And we already know that story, and we already know, oh my gosh, hypocrisy. I can't believe it. No one will ever stand for this. But it goes a little deeper than that. And I think now I recall that the reason I grabbed this thing was just because of the astonishing nature of the admissions Trump was making about his latest round of pardons. Like we mentioned yesterday that he was all upset that he pardoned Henry Cuellar and then I guess really thought that Cuellar would switch parties and run as a Republican. And then there'd be another Republican seat in Texas without even having to redistrict. And he was just like, all right, thanks for the pardon, man. Go F yourself. I'm a Democrat. And that was like astonishing to Trump, which is amazing that he just doesn't know what the play was here. But at the same time, he gave this pardon without giving any consideration to this whatsoever. And this is really astonishing. I mean, an ongoing thing, and I know we can't be shocked anymore, but the presidential pardon power, I mean, it's absolute They say. I mean, who knows what's going to come out of this Supreme Court. But it's supposed to be like this you're supposed to really deeply consider every angle on this thing, which is why you have a special, attorney and an office full of attorneys dedicated to this practice. It's a very deeply meaningful thing to grant this. And the fact that he's granting these things to like celebrities and I don't know, they asked me, so I gave it away. Really to exercise this power really needs to be carefully considered. And he really just doesn't he doesn't carefully consider anything. So it's going to be impossible for him in the main. But the fact that pardons are given out, and in multiple cases in which he says, I don't know the person. They seemed nice on TV. Somebody asked me. I was walking down the street and somebody says, Mr. President, would you please pardon my friend Joe? And I did. Because he seemed like a nice guy. It's really astonishing all by itself. Anyway, to this point, remarkably, in this interview, Greg writes, Trump revealed that his pardon of Honduran ex-president Juan Orlando Hernandez for his drug trafficking conviction in a U.S. court is almost comically ill-predicated. This came when Politico's Dasha Burns pointed out that Hernandez's pardon casts doubt on Trump's commitment to combating drug trafficking, the stated grounds for his boat bombings. All right, so we know about the hypocrisy, but I was more struck by the cavalier attitude towards pardons in general, because Trump then responds. Basically, he does the Mike Johnson or what used to be Kevin McCarthy or every other Republican. I haven't seen it. I don't know. I can't comment on it. Right? Trump responded. So they asked him, "What about this pardon?" He says, "Well, I don't know him, and I know very little about him other than people said it was like an Obama-Biden type setup, where he was set up. There are many people fighting for Honduras, very good people that I know, and they think he was treated horribly. And they asked me to do it, and I said, I'll do it." Like, that's not how you handle pardons, man. And it's also, like I said, the Republican dodge for everything. Well, sir, what do you think about this pardon that you granted? I'm not familiar with it, sorry. This is monumentally deranged stuff. And really, truly, honestly, not only just the lack of consideration given to the pardon, but the idea of being this blatantly hypocritical about drug trafficking. Note that Trump admits he knows next to nothing about Hernandez's case, even though his prosecutors really, won a conviction after alleging that he helped bring more than 500 tons of cocaine into the United States. Trump pardoned him with zero serious reflection on the impact that he had on drug use in our country. This is by Trump's own admission. And right, so zero consideration both of the fact that it would be monumentally hypocritical while he's bombing these boats, and zero consideration of the things that as he's out there saying, every one of these boats that we blow up saves 25,000 American lives because these drugs come to the United States and they ruin lives. They really do. They kill people. Well, what does 500 tons of cocaine do? I don't know. Ask Junior. Then, after Burns asked Trump if this sends the wrong message to drug dealers, Trump segued into claiming Hernandez was the victim of weaponized government, just as Trump himself was. Combine this with Trump's confession that he granted this pardon because people, quote, asked me to do it, and the takeaway is inescapable. He did it as a favor, probably corruptly, or out of his narcissistic association of Hernandez with himself, or a combination of both. His narcissism subjects him to easy manipulation by corrupt actors. Trump has ordered the killings of over 80 people in the Caribbean Sea on the grounds that they are bringing drugs into the United States. His administration hasn't presented serious evidence of this, and indeed, tons of evidence, and I guess there's probably tons of cocaine that could be used as evidence if they would just scoop it up. Tons of evidence contradicts it in various ways. Yet Trump has designated these alleged drug traffickers as, quote, narco-terrorists, and claims constitutional authority to kill them as combatants in a war. Most legal experts dismiss this as nonsense, noting that he's claiming the authority to summarily execute civilians who are not, in fact, waging war against the U.S. For Trump to then blithely admit to pardoning someone who trafficked in infinitely more drugs than any of these people that he's illegally killing, while not bothering to familiarize himself at all with the man's crimes against our country, should conclusively demolish the idea that any of this is about drugs coming into our homeland. And it gets worse. I can't believe it. Under questioning, Trump justified his campaign by claiming the bombing of each boat saves 25,000 lives, which is a brain-dead lie in numerous ways. Trump also told Politico, "We're going to hit him on the land very soon, too," seemingly saying straight out that a ground invasion of some sort in Venezuela is coming. Well, it could just be aerial bombing, I suppose. And then, after Burns noted that very little, if any, fentanyl comes to the U.S. via Venezuela or boats off its coasts, this exchange happened. Now, just time out before why did we shift to fentanyl? Because each boat we destroy saves 25,000 lives comes from the assumption that that's fentanyl on those boats. I'm sure Trump, if he put him on the spot, would say, well, cocaine can kill 25,000 people too. And maybe it can. But the fact that he sat there and said each of these boats saves 25,000 lives, it's based on there being fentanyl in the boats, of which there is none. Okay, so when Burns noted that very little fentanyl, if any, comes from Venezuela, he has this to say. Dasha asks him, so would you consider doing something similar with Mexico and Colombia that are even more responsible for fentanyl trafficking into the U.S.? And Trump, of course, opens the door there. Sure. Yeah, I would. Sure, I would. Note that it's now taken as a given, as an unremarkable and baked-in fact about our politics, that Trump is mulling a ground invasion of Venezuela and a dramatic expansion in his bombing campaign with no congressional authorization. What emerges from this interview is that Trump is pulling all of this, the substantive case for these bombings, the legal justification for them, the rationale for mulling a massive military escalation in the Western Hemisphere, out of his rear end. It's fortuitous this comes amid new signs that the Republicans might be open to more oversight over these bombings. That GOP concern comes amid continuing controversy over the news that two men were killed in a follow-up strike on September 2nd as they clung to a boat destroyed by an initial strike, which violates the laws of war. And, in fact, both of them do. We just learned, for instance, that lawmakers have inserted a provision into the annual defense bill that withholds 1/4. Oh, no, not 1/4, but withhold something. 1/4 of Hegseth's travel budget to force some oversight. I don't see how that's going to force him to do anything, but okay. The provision would require the Pentagon to release the written order for the strikes and unedited video of them to the Senate and House Armed Services Committees. A quarter of the budget isn't going to do it. A quarter of the travel budget certainly isn't going to do it. You need to, I don't know, you have to find a way to hit him where it hurts. Telling him a quarter of your budget is gone, he's just going to cheat. Well, I'm using the other 3/4 to do all this. Well, now you've run out of money. Well, to hell with you. National emergency. I'm flying anyway. All right. But it is a step forward, I guess. I don't know. Greg says so. It does say that right here. That's a step forward. Representative Adam Smith, the ranking Armed Services Democrat, tells me via text that the Pentagon has not released those written orders to the committee despite demands for it. That confirms other reports to this effect, and it's important because seeing them would allow lawmakers to assess precisely what Hegseth ordered, leading to that second strike. We're supposed to have all sorts of official records being kept about these things, so it'll be easy. It's now illegal to not keep official records of all of these kinds of things so that if Congress wants to conduct this oversight, it can. But for some reason, they either don't exist or we're not getting them. Gee whiz, what should we do about that? All right. So anyway, all of this could reveal Hegseth to be even more culpable. Such a public release would also make video of the second strike and perhaps all of the others available to a wider pool of lawmakers. What's more, Smith confirms to me that this insertion into the defense bill proceeded with the, quote, quiet acquiescence of Republicans. While we mustn't forget that this entire bombing campaign is illegal, the peculiarly heinous nature of the second strike may be prying open the door to more oversight later. And I guess here at this point, I will mention that I have in fact been reading along with your correspondents, Jeremy Freiberger writes very frequently, and he was, once again reiterating that point. We can't be focusing so much on the second strike when there's so much wrong with the first one. And I don't know, I thought we'd been acknowledging that clearly enough and often enough that we could get by on this one. But if not, we'll do it again. But here too, I guess what Greg Sargent's piece is emphasizing here is the reason that the second strike is getting all the attention is it's the only one that we can get any acknowledgement from Republicans as being a problem. And that may be the leverage that we can use to pry the whole thing open. So we're focusing on the second strike because Republicans are responding to that one. It's true, we all know in the background, and maybe we're not doing enough to reiterate that among ourselves, that the first strike is problematic all by itself. But I'm sure we'll return to that. I hope that we'll return to that once we pry things open using Republican feelings of guilt about the second strike. All right. Now, what this new interview really confirms, Greg continues, is that this oversight absolutely must go all the way to the very top, as national security law expert Tess Bridgman explains on the New Republic's podcast. You can go and listen to that, and some of you might even be able to do it at the same time. We know that at least one military lawyer internally objected to the bombings, the very first strikes as well, that the admiral previously overseeing them abruptly resigned amid concerns about them, and that the legal memo fake justifying them, which hasn't been released, appears to be a deeply unserious document. That's linked. I'd kind of be interested in reading why we know how unserious it is. But I mean, if it does anything but say, nope, we can't do this, then it really is going to be a deeply unserious document. But as I recall, what was so unserious about it was that it was the bootstrapping stuff. Well, because of the presidential determination that drugs make you a terrorist and terrorism makes you a war opponent, drug runners are now legally considered to be enemy combatants. Well, both of those presumptions are groundless, and combining them just makes them worse. All right. So, what has Trump been advised internally about the legal and substantive basis for these strikes? What have his underlings told him? What deliberations took place over Trump's decision to pardon the ex-president of Honduras? Has Trump discussed pardoning Hegseth or any others involved in these illegal killings? Trump's disastrous admissions in this interview reveal again that he is profoundly, catastrophically unfit to be making any of these decisions. By even the most minimal standard of public service, this should induce more Republicans to get to the bottom of it all. Oh well. Democrats should use these new revelations to hound them relentlessly if they refuse, as they surely will. Once again, I guess returning to the importance of leveraging the second strike that actually makes them feel bad about things. All right. So let's see. Other things I should add to this. Maybe at this point, we'll read a little bit about this. I'm sure we won't be able to make it to the end, but I wanted to let you know that this was happening out there. We, I think, opened the door to this some time ago when they disappointed Trump greatly by announcing he didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. But then, in fact, Maria Corina Machado of Venezuela did. And the more we read about her, the more we realized, hey, this doesn't seem like someone who should be winning the Nobel Peace Prize at all. And apparently there are people with second thoughts. The New York Times writes it up this way: Nobel Prize for Venezuelan dissident draws criticism. Maria Corina Machado is being honored for her push for democracy, even as she backs President Trump's military buildup. And it's a little bit more than a military buildup at this point. It's explosions that are killing 80 plus people. and his aggressive campaign against Venezuela. So what's up with her backing that one, and what is up for getting the Peace Prize for saying yes to a Donald Trump war? Genevieve Glatsky and Henrik Preiser-Libel. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry I mangled your names. Are reporting on this, and all I have time for is to give you a flavor of what's going on here, but perhaps we'll explore this more in depth later on. When the Norwegian Nobel Committee announced that it would award Maria Corina Machado, Venezuela's de facto opposition leader, the Peace Prize, it lauded her for pursuing a peaceful transition to democracy. But as Ms. Machado prepares to formally receive the award on Wednesday, that's today, the committee has come under criticism over her statements as U.S. warships amass in the Caribbean and the Trump administration readies to make a possible move against Venezuela's autocratic leader. Ms. Machado has firmly embraced President Trump's military buildup. That doesn't seem PC at all. And has publicly expressed her support for using force to oust the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro. She has also repeated debunked claims that Mr. Maduro manipulated U.S. elections, fueling accusations that she is amplifying misinformation to gain favor with the Trump administration. In other words, basically, they didn't give the Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump, but they did give the Nobel Peace Prize to someone who is quite Trumpy and might be almost, if not as crazy as he is. So maybe it's not beyond the pale. Maybe Donald Trump is in fact barking up the right tree. Eventually, even the Nobel Peace Prize Committee will give in to the maniacal focus that Trump has on the Peace Prize and may in fact be willing to say, to hell with all of the Nobel values. We will give him the trinket he's asking for, because we almost gave it to just as nutty a person, or we did give it to just as nutty a person this time. So, hey, why not make the leap to Trump? Well, I'll add this. It will be a different kind of Nobel Prize ceremony, said Benedict Bull, a professor at the University of Oslo, and a leading expert on Latin America in Norway. They've got him, Much more politicized than what we have seen before. While the ceremony typically draws heads of state across the political spectrum, Ms. Bull said that all the Latin American leaders attending this year will be from the right. It's almost as if it was dictated by the national security strategy of the United States of America. Why are you doing this, Norway? Ms. Machado's own attendance is unclear. She did not appear at a news conference planned on Tuesday by the Nobel Committee and has not been seen in public in Oslo, the site of the ceremony. That is odd, don't you think?
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, well, I'm sure we'll follow up on this a little bit in the rest of the week, but for now, it's time to hand things off to Justice Putnam. Pastime index for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. What's at the top of the list for today is Trump's terrible speech given in front of a tiny crowd at a casino ballroom in Pennsylvania. Why didn't he build his own ballroom? Well, we'll do that next.